Hello, you're watching It's About Youth with me, Faye Kwan. It's the show where we look into issues that matter to Malaysia's younger generation. Now, cyberbullying has emerged as a significant online threat that's affecting individuals of all age groups, but especially the youth. A 2019 UNICEF poll reveals that 1 in 3 young individuals in 30 countries have experienced online bullying, and 1 in 5 have skipped school as a result of cyberbullying. Joining me on the show today to dive a little bit deeper into this issue is Shermaine Sim, Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Officer at UNICEF, and Mediha Mahmood, the CEO of Content Forum. Thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Now, firstly, I'd like to look a little bit into the impacts of cyberbullying. Shermaine, based on your experience and your observations, what are some of the consequences of cyberbullying on an individual? And are we seeing any long-term impacts from that?
Definitely the impacts will be long-term and very persistent as well. Victims of cyberbullying often experience shame, embarrassed, angry, upset kind of emotions. And all these emotions is not addressed properly. It can lead to more severe kind of psychological impact. For example, symptoms of depressions, they might feel excessive feelings of guilt, as well as loss of interest in their usual pleasurable activities. In a way, their daily functions, social and occupational functions can be impaired. And again, in extreme cases, all these can also lead to self-harm as well as suicide. And of course, we all know when you are feeling embarrassed, feeling harassed, you might not have the courage to speak up. So all this prevent them from speaking up and can lead to more severe kind of consequences.
Now, it's very similar with physical bullying in person, just that it has now migrated to the online space and it's a bit more pervasive. But it's also not a new issue. Cyberbullying is something that I think we've been dealing with for quite a few years now. But Mediha, what would you say are some of the current challenges when it comes to enforcing actions against cyberbullying?
I think one of the problems would be because of all the things that Shermaine has mentioned, the victims themselves don't speak up and therefore they don't report. So I think the issue of cyberbullying is much bigger than we probably know because it goes underreported. So victims, like Shermaine said, there could be feelings of shame, there could be fear of repercussions, there could even be, it's sometimes possible for them to gaslight themselves into thinking, am I too sensitive? Is this just me being a snowflake? Or these are just the way friends tease friends. So sometimes it's just hard for them to also identify themselves as victims of cyberbullying. So that's one thing. I think the other problem is we also have the issue of the fact that because cyberbullying, unlike bullying in the old days where you can leave the playground if you're bullied and go home and you'll be safe, now you can't stop children from being on the internet either because that's where they socialize and play games and learn. But cyberbullying also allows them to be bullied and for their bullying to be witnessed by way many people, and the impact is wider in that sense as well. And I think that the other issue with that is there's also anonymity by the people who are bullying them. They don't know who they are. It could be their best friend hiding behind a screen name. So these are many of the challenges.
And in light of all those challenges now, the government has, of course, with recent developments, the government has pledged to review a few laws and also to potentially come up with a new law to specifically address cyberbullying because that's what Malaysia lacks at this moment. I'm curious to know, for both of you, what sort of factors need to be considered to come up with a legislation to address this issue while also protecting and supporting victims? Mediha, you want to start first?
I think number one, while these new laws are being made, and I do hope they're not made in a rush, we also probably need to look at how the current laws in existence are being implemented and enforced. I think some issues come also from the reporting is one thing, but also what happens after you make a report. How are evidences being taken in from the cyberspace? How is the cybercrime looking at it? Because from what we've heard, that this is one of the challenges that are faced by victims as well, because do screenshots count? Do you need to actually record the monitor? All these stuff. So there are existing laws that can deal with cyberbullying, but I do agree that there probably should be either revisions of current laws or the enactment of new laws. But in the meantime, we might want to look at how the processes are being done now. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
And how about you, Shermaine?
I think the first thing first is still the definitions of cyberbullying. As what Mediha has told just now, a lot of victims will feel that whether this is cyberbullying or not, or I'm just a snowflake, you know, it's just, I'm too sensitive. They themselves cannot differentiate. When you bring these issues to go and report, if let's say you have a very proper report mechanism in place, but the definition is not clear, when you bring it to the law enforcement and they will tell you, oh, this is not a cyberbullying, then you sort of like being gaslighted, whether I'm bullied, I'm really bullied or not. So all this have to make it very clear and educate properly to not just to the law enforcement but also to the public, so they know what cyberbullying really is, and then we can put everything other things in place. For example, your reporting mechanisms and the digital evidence collections, as well as like what are the supports after that. So all this have to take into account.
I think that's very important as well. The support for the victims also need to be in the act, I believe.
And it should come together throughout the reporting and investigation process. And you're right that currently it's a very subjective topic at the moment, without a proper definition for cyberbullying. In that sense, are there any international modules or best practices in tackling cyberbullying that Malaysia could adopt or look into, Mediha?
Oh, I think Shermaine might be better.
Okay, Shermaine, you want to take this one?
I think there are a lot of other countries have tried to put it in place, but there's also a recent study saying that like there's the major, if you look at the same post, the major improvement in awareness is in Italy, but but they have increased awareness. They have made a lot of initiative, but the cyberbullying law is still very vague in many countries. They tried to establish that, but there is no like countries that have a perfect law at the moment. Of course, we don't have it. Everybody and every countries have different contexts. The social media platform, the communications methods are also very different in different countries. So we will still have to just look at it, and then how do we adapt to our contextualize it into Malaysia situation is still very subjective. I would suggest like whoever's involved have to involve all the stakeholders as wide as possible, and definitely have to involve those people who are really using the social media, the people with lived experience, especially the younger populations. They are the ones that could tell us what's the actual stories out there. You and I probably are a bit outdated. We are not using a lot of social media platforms, right? But the young people who actually use it, they can tell you what is the real things that happen online. And that are the things that you have to take into account. And we have to make it living documents. The law have to be very dynamic because our technology is advancing so much nowadays.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. You said it perfectly. It does need a collaborative effort for all stakeholders, especially lived experiences, because otherwise, unfortunately, if we just look at it from an academic overview, you might not really deal with the problem, because cyberbullying isn't just about people going live on TikTok or bullying. There's also the gaming community where that also happens. And you know, we may be the generation that does a lot of WhatsApping, but the younger generation are on Discord, and there are other features on Discord that can lead to this kind of thing. So definitely need to look at how we can do this and make it future-proof in a way.
And today, like let's say we come up with a law that just managing these few platforms. Tomorrow you have other new platforms coming out, other new communication channels. How do we catch up with that? Those are the things that we have to take into account as well.
It's all about adapting, and very important point that to have victims or survivors, let them to have a voice and for them to have a seat at the table. In that sense, then, can we say that regulations and harsher penalties are something that can entirely address cyberbullying? Are there other measures that we should be looking into?
Definitely. I mean, to me, it's always like, you know, you can build fences as high as you want, but you still need to teach people to be better neighbors. You know, you still have to have advocacy, awareness and campaigns. And you know, whenever we talk about education and awareness, sometimes we tend to forget the fact that we need to bring that education and awareness to where the problems are happening. I mean, it's great if you have public service announcements on TV or if you have on-ground events, but we need to find a way to have a digital campaign that is, you know, widespread. I don't know how to do it, but it needs to be done where the cyberbullying is happening. And education awareness is one thing. It's also about teaching people to protect themselves and how to manage themselves if they are getting cyberbullied. And also conversations with the social media or technology platforms to talk about how they themselves can also improve their features to probably assess and prevent such cases from escalating.
And what role does digital literacy come to play here?
Oh, huge, I think. It's a huge role. And whenever we have this conversation, people say, you know, you got to put it in the school syllabus and all stuff like that. But I really do feel that it comes from as young as possible. And like it or not, when you talk about children who are very young, parents do have to play a role. And we still see parents who provide devices to their children just like that, you know, with no monitoring, no oversight, no supervision, without even having a conversation about what other online harms that they could be facing out there, which is plenty, from grooming to not just cyberbullying but everything else. So I think digital literacy needs to be very holistic. Parents need to know how to have these conversations with their children and what other features are available for them to help their children navigate this world properly, because like it or not, this is where they spend most of their time online.
And how about you, Shermaine? What, beyond regulations, what measures should we be looking into to ensure better online safety?
Yeah, I think Mediha has basically spelled out most of it. I do agree, like, harsher punishments is a must here, because we want to send a very firm message to the public and say no to cyberbullying. We need to deter cyberbullying, but as what Mediha said, it's not stand-alone measures. It cannot entirely address the cyberbullying issue just by having harsher punishment alone. We have to work coupled with a lot of other initiatives like public awareness. How do we improve the awareness on cyberbullying? How do we equip our young people to know how to create a safe space for themselves? How to identify a case of cyberbullying incidents and how to report it? And once it happened, where to look for the resources for help. And all this help-seeking behavior will come into play as well. So all these are like multi-layer kind of stakeholders. It's not just like single agency working in silo again. It's everybody have to come together and tackle it together. Who needs digital literacy? Basically everyone in today's world. Yeah, how to create a safe space, because everyone is in the safe space. Everyone's have to be involved and know how to do it. So it's like all layers kind of stakeholders have to come into play.
Yeah, we all have a role to play in this. And we touched a little bit earlier about the importance of providing support to victims throughout the reporting and investigation process. What sort of support systems do you think should be best put in place to ensure that these victims receive adequate help and protection?
Definitely, we say if you look through all the resources that UNICEF have provided so far, we will ask, we will educate the victims of bullying. If you think you have been bullied, please talk to a trusted person. The trusted person can be your parents, can be your teachers, can be your friends, or whoever, like counselors, professional help, if you can have access to. But the thing is, when you report it, the law enforcement personnel have to be equipped with enough knowledge to handle the sensitivity around it. A lot of time, this is the major bottlenecks, right? You equip everybody else. The victim got enough support, but when you come to law enforcement, when they go through the reporting process, there's a barrier there. They don't take it seriously, or they dismiss it, or they minimize the impact of it. Then again, every other's efforts that you put into support has gone into drain. You know, so sometimes this is the things that we really have to look into, how we equip our law enforcement personnel or whoever deal with the victim, have the sensitivity, have the literacy to deal with all this very delicate kind of situation.
Right, so better training and more resources, not just for the victim, also for law enforcement.
True.
I think so those are those two stakeholders, right? We've talked a little bit about awareness programs. So parents and teachers have a role to play, law enforcement, and then tech platform providers, they themselves, the ones that are providing this space. What more can they do really to help prevent cyberbullying on their platforms? I mean, beyond just, I think moderating itself is still a very wild, wild west kind of playground. Mediha?
I think they are doing what they can. I mean, you know, they've got proactive measures. That's why you've got all these filters who don't allow that content to reach us in the first place. So that's why hopefully a majority of that harmful content doesn't even reach the users. But I do feel that because this is a problem that's being faced all around the world, tech platforms being the platforms, should probably leverage and also invest in advanced technology to look at it. I mean, we all talk about AI. There must be a way that we can have training data for the AI to be able to assess and, you know, do have some reaction to it before it escalates. And another thing is also, I feel that Malaysia is very unique in the sense that when we talk about hate speech or cyberbullying, we have to take into account where they're multicultural, multi-religious, multi-language. So bullying can come in so many languages and slangs, and you know there needs to be a more mature, not mature lah, but more developed training for moderators, whether it's human or computer generated, where it is advanced enough to capture all these nuances as well.
I'm actually curious, when we're talking about this, where do both of you view Malaysia's progress in this whole space right now? Was that a tough question?
I'm just trying to
I think in data evidence generation, you have to cite a data back in 2018 that's generated. That shows a large gap. We don't have enough published data on cyberbullying. We need more data in this area. Probably this is some things that both of us have to think about. I never thought of it until you say, oh, our latest data was 2018 just now. I'm like, okay, we don't have updated data. So that's some things that we really have to look into. And then whether Malaysia is on the right track on policy, I see now our policymakers are actively engaging a lot of social media platforms in a lot of conversations to try to make the online space a safer space for our Malaysians young people. I think that's a good initiative, but how do we really carry these conversations into implementation and how to make it effective, and whether there is a monitoring and evaluation in place, all these have to be seen. But definitely it's on the right track, I would say.
Okay. Mediha?
I believe so. Even the fact that we're having this conversation here today it's good. And it does require constant dialogue as well. And I really feel that, again, we go back to the whole fact that there needs to be a collaborative effort in everything, from policy making to advocacy to even talking to tech platforms about what they need to do to improve their platforms. It needs to come from CSOs and also subject matter experts as well. So we have a more holistic view of what can be done, feasibly be done because of technology, and also better done for Malaysia as a country.
Yeah, it's truly a work in progress, and here's hoping that there would be more research post-pandemic on what the landscape looks like right now. So looking ahead, I think we've harped a lot about how it's such a multi-stakeholder approach, all of society kind of approach. What kind of proactive steps then can communities themselves take to create a safer online environment and better protect our youths?
Community-wise, they need to know we have this kindness campaign from UNICEF. We always promote how do you want to be kind, how do you not have hate speech, and all these measures have to be in place. So I think these campaigns have to carry on. The community have the largest influence in this area. Probably these are continued efforts. And of course, now with so much hot topics around all this area, the community can do a lot of educations, awareness campaign, to how to equip everybody has a responsibility in this area. How do we create a safe space? How do we enable our young people and ourselves to create a safe space online? And how we teach each other to be respectful and also respect the confidentiality and anonymity, how to bring our voices into the comment sections, everything, in a respectful way, and not putting down other people. So all this kindness and respectful, I think, is the value that we have to bring into the community. But I think all these are already in place in our education system. How do we make it more effective? Some things that we have to sit down and come up with a strategy as well. And one thing we also discussed this a little bit on that is the cyberbullier, the bullier themselves. Why do they have this bullying behavior? There's one of the things is lack of awareness. They're probably not aware that this is causing harm to other people. But also there's a lot of underlying social emotional issues themselves that they do not know how to cope with it. Maybe they also need some kind of supports, right? So that if we could address all these underlying issues, probably this bullying behavior will be addressed as well. That's some things we can think about.
Yeah, so looking at the root cause as well and what drives people to leave these abusive and harsh comments and harass online in the first place. Mediha, do you have anything to add on?
I completely agree with that as well, and I also think we need to look at the fact that all these values, which are great values, are being taught already, but it's not being reflected as well online. You don't communicate to people in real life the way you communicate online sometimes. If you look at the hateful comments and you think about, do you walk through life talking like this to people? I don't think so. And I've met people who are raging, angry people.
Keyboard warriors.
Yes. And then when you meet them, they're like perfectly normal human beings. And then you wonder what's going on there. So for the Content Forum, we also understand that in order to bring these values and have these messages out there, we are working as well with social media platforms. So we collaborate with them to have these campaigns and these initiatives and these dialogues with them so we can leverage on their platform as well. And it's also part of how they can give back to society and try and minimize the kind of harms that they find on the platform. So I feel that everything Shermaine says is exactly what we need to do. We just need to make sure that it's being done everywhere by everyone and the same kind of messaging applies. Sometimes people say cyberbullying, you think about teenagers and children online, but then you've got senior citizens who are also being very very hateful in WhatsApp and Facebook. So it is a problem that transcends beyond the generations. So we need to make sure that whatever we do adapts to each of these demographic and crowds.
Yep, and when you mentioned, sorry.
Just one point I was just thinking, like you say, like in real life we all be kind, they can be very nice people, but when they're online they turn into a monster. Is that because of the anonymity? Is this some things that we also have to take into considerations when we draft the legislations or whatever law that come into place, right? Some things that we have to think about. This anonymity, they're hiding behind a screen and then doing all the things that they feel that they won't be accountable for it. So there are some things that we need to think.
All right. Yeah. And holding all these campaigns, I imagine, it's something that looks good on the tech company's part, but also making sure that there is something coming out of these campaigns that people are truly learning.
Yes, it shouldn't just be cosmetic.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your insights on this very important topic today. I've been speaking to Shermaine Sim from UNICEF and Mediha Mahmood from the Content Forum. This has been It's About Youth with me, Fei Kwan. Thank you for watching and see you next time.